There's a force more powerful than action, quieter than words, yet sharper than any argument. Silence. It's not weakness. It's not absence. It's not giving up. It's control. In a world addicted to noise, stillness has become radical. People talk to prove they exist. They interrupt to feel important. But silence? Silence doesn't beg for attention. It earns respect. Science is catching up to what the wise already knew. 2 hours of silence a day can grow brain cells. Not just rest your mind, reshape it. Silence increases memory, lowers stress, and triggers the brain's default mode network, the part that makes sense of who we are. You want clarity? Step into quiet. Great leaders, from Marcus Aurelius to Nelson Mandela, understood this. They didn't just speak. They waited. They observed. They let the world speak first. And when they answered, people listened. Here you'll learn how to use silence not as a void, but as a tool, a weapon, a shield. You'll understand the psychology behind restraint, the biology of stillness, the power of saying nothing until the right moment demands everything. Because silence isn't passive. It's the deepest kind of presence. And in a noisy world, presence is power. Welcome to Unstoppable Ascent, where we don't just chase growth, we master it from the inside out. Subscribe now and step into the strength most people never dare to touch. Silence is not just the absence of sound, it's the absence of friction, outside and within. We often think of silence as a quiet room, no traffic, no talking, no ticking clocks. But that's only half the story. True silence goes deeper. It's the moment your mind stops racing, when thoughts stop chasing each other like storms across your brain. That's when silence begins to work. External noise can damage the body, but internal noise, the anxious self-talk, the loop of worries, the echo of past mistakes can damage the soul. And science is no longer silent on this. A 2006 study in Heart Journal found that just 2 minutes of silence produced greater calming effects on the body than relaxing music. Blood pressure dropped, heart rate slowed, breathing deepened without effort. These weren't guesses, they were measurable biological shifts. In 2013, researchers at Duke University discovered that silence actually stimulates the growth of new brain cells in the hippocampus, the region tied to learning, memory, and emotion. That's right, silence doesn't just heal, it builds. Silence also lowers cortisol, the hormone behind chronic stress. And when cortisol goes down, your immune system steps up. Natural killer cells become more active. Inflammation reduces. Your body stops fighting shadows and starts defending you for real. You think silence is nothing? Your body disagrees. It knows silence is recovery, restoration, recalibration. So the next time you're surrounded by noise or worse, filled with it, remember this: silence isn't just peaceful, it's powerful. It's a biological event, a quiet revolution happening behind your ribs. You can't hear it, but your body can. But your body can. Creativity doesn't shout, it waits. It hides in the still places, beneath the noise, behind the urgency, between your thoughts. When the world quiets down, something ancient wakes up. Deep inside the hippocampus, a small seahorse-shaped structure in your brain, silence triggers the birth of new neurons. Real growth, not theory, not metaphor, measurable, physical transformation. Researchers found that mice exposed to 2 hours of silence daily showed greater development of brain cells linked to memory and emotion. That means silence doesn't just soothe, it shapes, it rewires. And here's the thing most people miss: the brain doesn't create when it's being pulled in every direction. Interruptions kill imagination. Notifications strangle flow. Every time you switch focus, it costs your brain energy, and eventually ideas. But in silence, the mind stops reacting and starts reflecting. That's when you enter the default mode network, a powerful mental state your brain enters only when it's free from distractions. That's where daydreams form, where you revisit memories, where future plans take shape. It's the playground of invention, and silence holds the keys. Einstein often credited his best insights not to books, but to long walks alone. Nikola Tesla claimed his visions came to him in complete solitude, in vivid flashes. They weren't running from silence, they were running toward it. See, silence isn't the absence of work. It's the chamber where real work begins. The moment when your mind stops echoing the world and starts speaking with its own voice. But most people never get there. They're too busy filling every gap, afraid of the pause, uncomfortable with the stillness. And so their greatest ideas stay buried. But when you master silence, when you learn to sit with it, that's when the dam breaks, and what's been waiting underneath rushes out. Unfiltered, unforced, unstoppable. Every decision starts in the unseen, not in the noise, not in the rush, but in the still. We don't make our worst choices because we lack knowledge. We make them because we lack space. Space to think, space to feel what's true beneath the pressure. Without that space, we react. We don't respond. Silence creates that space. Inside the human brain, there's a powerful system called the default mode network. Harvard researchers found it becomes most active when the mind is at rest, when there's no task, no demand, no voice telling you what to do, just you and your awareness. It's in this space that you begin to separate the signal from the static. You start to see patterns, motivations, mistakes you've been repeating, desires that aren't yours, regrets that still hold weight. All of it floats to the surface if you let it. But here's the challenge. Silence doesn't always feel good at first. It can feel like withdrawal, from the addiction to stimulation. But that discomfort, that's where clarity begins. Not on the surface, deep down, where most never look. When you stop filling your head with opinions, when you stop rehearsing the same conversations, when the internal dialogue dies down, that's when you hear your own voice, the one you drowned out, the one that already knows. You stop chasing answers and start sitting with them. You start to notice how quickly you react to fear, how often your choices serve your ego, not your peace. You see it all, without judgment, without resistance, just presence. And with that presence comes power. Because once the noise fades, the truth speaks. And when the truth speaks, decisions make themselves. Power doesn't always speak. Sometimes it waits. In a world obsessed with being heard, the strongest person in the room is often the one who says the least. Not out of fear, but out of discipline. The Stoics understood this. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best answer to anger is silence. Not because silence avoids conflict, but because it controls it." When you meet rage with stillness, you disarm it. You force the fire to burn out on its own. No fuel, no reaction, just silence. In the heat of any moment, the instinct is to strike back, defend, explain, win. But silence is not surrender. It's strategy. When you say nothing, you change the balance. You force others to sit with their words. And you protect your energy from battles that don't build you. That same principle holds in negotiation. A pause, a moment of deliberate quiet makes people uncomfortable. They rush to fill it. And in doing so, they reveal everything. Their fears, their limits, their hand. Top negotiators don't speak to dominate. They speak to provoke. Then they listen, carefully, actively. They leave room for the truth to leak out, and it always does. Because silence isn't empty, it's a mirror. It shows people more of themselves than they ever planned to reveal. You give them space, and they fill it with what they think, what they feel, what they fear. You just have to wait. Every word you don't say is a weapon not wasted. Every pause is a moment gained, not inaction, calculation. When you speak less, you observe more. And when you observe more, you control more. Say less, mean more. Because in the right hands, silence doesn't weaken a message. It sharpens it. Every morning, before the world wakes, something sacred begins. Not with a word, but with the choice to withhold one. In ancient India, they call it mana. The practice of noble silence. No talking, no explaining, no responding. From sunrise until midday, nothing passes the lips. But what begins as silence in speech becomes silence in thought. The chatter slows, the pulse settles. The body, sensing no threat, begins to repair. Modern science is just starting to name what the sages already knew. When you engage in speech fasting, deliberate silence over time, your nervous system shifts. Cortisol, the hormone tied to stress, begins to drop. Blood pressure lowers. The body no longer prepares for battle. It prepares for balance. You're not hiding. You're healing. Think about what most mornings look like. Alarms, messages, opinions before breakfast. Your voice is forced to perform before your mind is ready to listen. You speak to be understood before you've understood yourself. And the cost? Constant tension. A system always on edge. a mind never at rest. But in silence, the body remembers something deeper, a rhythm that isn't ruled by urgency, a wisdom that doesn't need words. When monks keep silence, it's not to escape life, it's to enter it more fully. Every sound becomes sharper, every thought more honest, every emotion harder to lie about, because when there's no one to speak to, there's no one left to deceive but yourself. You begin to notice how often you speak to escape discomfort, to fill space, to prove your worth. But in silence, there's no proving, just being, just breathing. And in that space, the mind resets, the body recovers, and a deeper voice, quieter than thought, stronger than fear, starts to rise. We weren't born afraid of silence. We were taught to fear it. From the moment we could speak, we were praised for being loud, quick, clever. Stillness was punished. Quiet kids were called shy, awkward, weird, and so we learned, fill the air or fall behind. But silence isn't the problem. The conditioning is. There's a word for this fear, sedatophobia, the fear of silence. It sounds dramatic until you realize how common it is. That discomfort you feel when the music stops. That urge to check your phone the moment there's a pause. That twitch when the conversation goes still. It's not random, it's programmed. Because silence exposes things noise can hide. The doubts, the grief, the loneliness, the truth. And when the distractions disappear, those things step forward. So we run. We fill every gap with sound. Podcasts in the car, TV in the background, notifications all day long. Not because we need them, but because we're afraid of what we'll hear without them. But here's the truth most never confront. Silence isn't the enemy, it's the mirror. And a mirror doesn't create what it shows, it only reflects it. The good news? Fear that's learned can be unlearned. It starts by sitting in the quiet. 1 minute, then 2. Let the discomfort come. Let the mind twitch. Let the urge rise. And don't move. Because on the other side of that urge is freedom. Not the kind that shouts, the kind that hums, the kind that holds you steady when the world demands a reaction. Silence doesn't mean you're missing something, it means you're finally present with everything. But to get there, you have to walk through the noise. And that takes courage most people never practice. Anger wants the first word. Ego wants the last. But silence owns the space in between. We live in a world that rewards reaction. Fire off a comment, snap back, clap louder. And every time you react without thinking, you give away power. You give away presence. You trade wisdom for impulse. But when you hold your tongue, when you resist the need to defend, explain, or prove, you create something rare. You create restraint. And restraint is not weakness, it's mastery. You've been in those moments, tension rising, someone says something sharp, you feel the heat in your chest, your jaw tightens. Every part of you wants to fire back. But if you can wait just a few seconds, if you can breathe instead of speak, you shift the entire atmosphere. You move from reaction to response, from chaos to clarity. And the people around you feel it. They might not say it, but they feel it. The weight of someone who doesn't need to react. The presence of someone who can hold the moment without letting it hold them. That kind of silence commands respect. Not by force, but by depth. It shows you're not ruled by every emotion that passes through, that you've built something steady inside, something that doesn't crack when provoked. Psychologists call it emotional regulation. The ability to notice what you feel without letting it take the wheel. And silence is one of its greatest tools. Because when you don't rush to speak, you make room for the emotion to move through you. You don't trap it in your words, you release it in your stillness. Some people raise their voice to be heard, others lower it to be taken seriously. But the rarest ones, the ones who lead, who last, who grow, they speak only when it adds something stronger than their silence. Real listening starts when your mouth stops moving. Most people don't listen to understand. They listen to reply. They wait for a pause, not to absorb, but to insert, to take the stage back, to be right. But silence, deliberate, patient silence, invites something deeper. It tells the other person, I see you, I hear you, I'm not waiting to speak, I'm here to witness. And in a world that talks over pain, that scrolls past sorrow, that rushes past nuance, that kind of presence is rare. It's powerful. When you give someone space to speak without interrupting, without solving, without rushing, you're doing more than staying quiet. You're building trust. You're letting them unfold at their own pace. You're allowing them to reveal not just facts, but feelings. That's where connection happens. Not in the facts, in the feelings underneath. You want to understand someone? Don't speak over their silence. Let them fill it. Let them decide what matters. That's empathy. That's not about you, it's about them. And sometimes the most healing thing isn't advice. It's being heard, fully, without judgment, without distraction. Just a steady, grounded presence that says, you don't need to perform here. I'm not in a rush. Even in conflict, silence can disarm. Not passive silence, engaged silence. Listening with your whole body, eye contact, stillness, letting them empty out their storm before you speak a single word. And when you do speak, you'll know exactly what's needed. Not because you guessed, but because you listened. You don't build connection by filling space. You build it by holding it. With strength, with care, with silence that says, I value you enough not to rush this. Because sometimes the most generous thing you can give someone is room to be fully heard. Silence isn't just a pause, it's a portal. You stay in it long enough, something in you begins to change. Not just your thoughts, your brain, the wiring itself. Science has a word for it, neuroplasticity. The brain's ability to reshape, to adapt, to grow new connections. And silence is one of its triggers. Not noise, not effort. Stillness. That's where the brain begins to heal, to strengthen, to evolve. Studies show that periods of silence, not sleep, not music, not meditation, but pure silence, stimulate growth in the hippocampus. That's the region responsible for memory, for learning, for emotional clarity. That means the quiet doesn't just relax you, it rebuilds you. It sharpens the edges you forgot were there. And what begins in the brain doesn't stay there. It shows up in your life. You start to feel more resilient, more able to hold pressure without collapsing under it. The storms still come, but your roots run deeper. You don't shake like you used to. You bend, you breathe, you stay. Focus returns. Not from force, but from space. Without the constant pull of external noise, your mind stops splintering. It learns to aim, to lock in, to hold a line until it's finished. And underneath all that, you start to hear a voice. Not loud, not sudden, quiet, steady, yours. The deeper voice that was always there but got buried under distraction, under noise, under survival. And once you hear it, once you learn to trust it, your decisions change. Your relationships shift. Your direction becomes clear. Not because someone told you, because you finally listened. Not to the world, not to the doubt, but to the voice silence uncovered. The one that never lies, the one that never leaves. Stay silent, and everything will come naturally. Not because silence fixes everything, but because silence reveals everything. It's not passive. It's not retreat. It's not emptiness. It's a discipline, a power, a presence that doesn't need noise to prove itself. In silence, your mind resets. Your emotions settle. Your instincts sharpen. You stop reacting, and you start responding. With clarity, with calm, with truth. You begin to hear what matters. You begin to feel what's real. And without force, without pressure, the next step simply appears. So here's your challenge. Try 2 minutes of silence today. No phone, no music, no words. Just sit. Let it be uncomfortable. Let it be still. And watch what unfolds. You might be surprised by what rises to the surface when you finally stop chasing sound. If this message spoke to you without saying too much, go ahead and like this video. Share it with someone who needs the reminder. And subscribe to our channel, Unstoppable Ascent, where we rise quietly with purpose.